of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of the Racehour podcast in association with our good friends at Gambling.com. I'm Darren Hughes, temporarily occupying Dean Ryan's seat for this week, and I'm joined by what can only be described as a stellar cast of merry bandits. I almost didn't believe it myself. First up, I've got the inimitable Diarmuid Nolan. Dermo, how are you keeping?
All good, Darren. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Looking forward to a cracking weekend's racing, and as we're obviously entering into the festive period as well. I've also got Gary Connolly in the hot seat. All good with you, Gary?
All good, mate. Yeah, and good to be back on. So looking forward to this weekend's racing.
For sure, yeah, likewise. But before we go into this week's racing, let's take a quick look at last week's racing. I'm going to get your thoughts, Gary, first of all, please, on the main race, or the main cross-water matchup from last weekend. El Fabiolo and Jonbon. Jonbon obviously doing the business in Sandown, and El Fabiolo doing the business in the Hilly Way. From that limited evidence, do you think that Jonbon can turn the form around from Cheltenham last year?
Yeah, in regards to the racing, both were fine. Jonbon probably has more substance to the form. And Fabiolo done what he had to do. I was actually surprised Jonbon ran when Henderson took out his other horses. I don't know if it's saying where he is in the pecking order there, or what Henderson thinks of him. But last year he had a tough enough campaign, so he's probably one that stands up to the racing. In regards to turning around the form, I don't think he ran up the form at Cheltenham last year. When you look at the Sandown run when he beat Captain Guinness, but did he run that below that he can turn around the form? I don't think so. I just think El Fabiolo is just a better horse than him. It'd be interesting, like both supposedly getting named at the Clarence House, so we'll find out sooner than March. But for me, just El Fabiolo is a better horse. Jonbon, he'll win what he wants to cross there without Willie selling any of his 2 miles over. But yeah, El Fabiolo, it's tough to see Jonbon turn around the chase form anyway.
Yeah, fair arguments indeed. That Clarence House would be a hell of a race. Willie Mullins has gotten very fond of selling his horses over to that Clarence House. Dermo, trainers are creatures of habit. Do you reckon it's likely we'll see the pair match up in Ascot before they head to Cheltenham?
Probably more likely Jonbon drops out than El Fabiolo by the sound of it. Like, I know Willie's one for messing around with his Cheltenham targets, but his pre-Cheltenham targets tend to be fairly bang on. You know, he tends to say where a horse is going, and the only time he's ever deviated was probably the likes of an Album Photo, but that was the year where Leopardstown was like a road. So, you know, that kind of made sense. But I kind of think that Jonbon's a bit closer to El Fabiolo than that looked at Cheltenham last year. I mean, Aidan Coleman got off straight away and said in ITV that he felt very flat. He probably had a busy enough campaign as well. He's a tough old horse. There is an argument too that maybe, you know, the ride wasn't kind of fantastic either. He probably made a little bit too much of him. I don't think there's a whole lot between them. I just have a nagging doubt whether Jonbon is a Cheltenham horse. I think he seems to produce his best form elsewhere. Saying that, though, he's been beaten by El Fabiolo and Constitution Hill there. It's not like he's been seen off by some old, you know, a Nick Warrior or something. So I don't think there's a whole lot between them. I think it's a closer picture than we think. El Fabiolo still throws in the odd weird jump. I'd be forgiving of the fact that he was a little bit, you know, like kind of, he made heavy enough weather of it. He was given plenty of weight to field door, and you know, a lot of Willies have needed their first run. It's as simple as that. So he'll improve plenty for it. But just with his few jumping blemishes, if Jonbon was a decent price in a match on the day, yeah, I kind of wouldn't be a million miles from that now, Darren.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I get exactly where you're coming from. The old not a Cheltenham horse line is a funny one, because I think they said that about Min for a little while as well, but obviously Min was just getting kicked out of the way by Altior, so there was no shame in that. Before I do move on, I'll stick with you, Dermo. What are your thoughts about Jonbon maybe going up and trip at some stage? Like, at the moment he looks plenty quick enough for a 2 miler, but there is always that like nagging suspicion that maybe there might be more in the locker where he just step up to 2.5 or even 3 miles at some point throughout the course of his career.
Yeah, Nicky's 2 milers have always tended to kind of look that way. Altior looked like he could have definitely went up, and he did, and that probably ended him. Shishkin, he's a bit of a rogue, but he definitely sees out a further trip as he proved at Aintree. So there is a bit there, you know. Jonbon has always shaped like he'd easily go up and trip, but you get the sense from Nicky Henderson that he doesn't think that El Fabiolo, even though he he never pronounces that horse's name right, but he doesn't seem to think that there's a million miles between them. So Nicky Henderson has his detractors this week, and rightfully so, but he's still a master trainer. And if he thinks Jonbon's not a million miles away from Fabiolo, who's a mere mortal like me to question him?
You make a very fair point, though. I make a great habit of questioning Nicky Henderson at every available turn. I'm going to stick with you before I go back to Gary. Any other eye catchers from the weekend before I move on to the main news story we have this week?
Yeah, of course, buddy. Yeah, the kind of racing overall, I thought Stellar Story was brilliant. Really good. Gordon Elliott's rebuild since his self-inflicted kind of downfall is something to behold. His novice hurdlers look very, very good. You know, you're talking the likes of Crow Park, etc. He's packed with them. So he's another one. I really liked what he did. But one handicapper that definitely has a chase in him is Chartreuse. He was a decent hurdler, has taken his while to find his feet over fences, but with a trainer like Henry de Bromhead, he always was going to. And he ran over 2 mile 4 behind Embittered in that decent handicap chase at Navan last weekend. They travelled like the winner the whole way through. He just didn't have that finishing kick because he's a 3 miler plus. But the way he looks so well in himself, Darragh O'Keefe gave him a screamer of a ride. He's a horse to me now that you know, something like a Tasties or something like that later on the season, you could see him at a decent price. The further he goes out, if he can continue to jump like he did that day, that horse is very well handicapped, and there's a very decent race in him.
For sure, there's certainly he strikes you as the type of horse that is going to pick up a big pot someday. What kind of price he'd be is anyone's guess. Gary, I'll ask you the same question. Any other eye catchers from the weekend away from the Grade 1 chasers or the novice chasers come up in class?
Yeah, massive one for me was Indiana Dream, who won it. Well, it looked a warm looking beginner's chase at Navan last Saturday. Like he was weak enough in the betting, and Willie's most of them needing the first time out run. There was a lot to like about that performance. He absolutely clattered one going out on the last lap, and he gave some rivals, race fit rivals with experience, a beatdown, an absolute beatdown. And you can say what you want about the anti-post markets the way they are now. I can't believe this one's still 20 to 1 for the Brown Advisory. Like he looked the real deal to me. Maybe he's fragile enough. He hasn't been seeing a whole pile, but geez, I was fierce impressed by him. He looks to have some engine, and that race 20 to 1 just looks wrong at this stage. So I've dipped my toe in, and yeah, really impressed me.
Well, an early anti-post selection from Gary Connolly after what was undoubtedly a very, very impressive performance from a horse that, as you said, very, very weak in the market. I think he was, 6 to 4 shot or even a bit shorter early in the morning. BSP at nearly 3 to 1. So that just shows you the market was really, really against Indiana Dream. Going to move on to something slightly different, lads. Gary, I'll stick with you for this first of all. We had a news story leaked from the BHA in the last 72 hours or thereabouts that handicap entries in the UK are going to be capped at 4 per yard. In typical O'Leary form, Eddie O'Leary has come out and said that would be no impediment to the Jingastown horses because they'll simply change the trainer of their horse in the days leading up to whatever race they want to run in, sticking a metaphorical middle finger up towards the BHA for not the first time in their ownership lives. Gary, what are your thoughts on both this proposal and the O'Leary's response, and anything else you might want to add on this?
The O'Learys, you just have to be the king trolls in the racing industry. I think they're brilliant. Anything they come out with in this, the tongue-in-cheek stuff, give it to me all day. I think it's unbelievable. And as I said, just giving the 2 fingers up to the authorities. Who doesn't like doing that from time to time? The route itself, it's just bananas, isn't it? There's enough problems in racing. This really isn't one of them, particularly in the UK. It's minimal effect. Why just target and train it? If it's owners, 4 owners in the same race, fair enough. But bigger problems to be worrying about than this, and it seems to be trying to single out one trainer for who's had his issues, and there could be perceived an agenda against them. But silly rule, I think, and yeah, fair play to the O'Learys just coming out with a statement that makes it look that silly. I'd love it to actually happen. I'd love to see it happen, and the whole process play out in public. But I think smart heads will prevail in this instance, and I don't think it'll come in, but we'll see.
Yeah, I take your point. It's I think that there's a fair chance they will back down. But as Gary alluded to, Dermo, I think we can call a spade here. This is effectively a slap in the face to Gordon Elliott, or an attempted slap in the face towards Gordon Elliott and the way he campaigns his horses. I think you're on record, I might be wrong in saying this, as you know, suggesting that something like this might go a long way to sort of helping what, you know, they end up being almost single owner races sometimes in Ireland anyway, less so in England. But what are your thoughts on the BHA proposal, or the supposed BHA proposal, I should say?
I think it's the right avenue, but the wrong way of doing it. I think Gordon Elliott having 15 runners in a handicap in Ireland the last days, it's just not good for the sport. It just isn't. And it's not just Gordon. I mean, Willie Mullins could have 8 or 9 in a handicap hurdle at times. You know, like at the festival easily at Punchestown. So like we're getting to the point where there's 2 yards that are dominating everything. Absolutely everything. You know, there's grade ones in Ireland that are just the 2 of them. The Morgiana hurdle was pretty much just Willie Mullins. But this needs to be thought out more. I mean, you can't just restrict Gordon Elliott, because the O'Learys will find a way around. I take Gary's point, though. I do think the O'Learys are hilarious. I also think that they're hated in racing because of how brash they are, but they're actually one of the few owners where their horses run to merit every single time that they run. They never handicap a horse. Their horses can end up handicapped by accident at times, but they run every horse in their merit. They've had 33-1 winners in Beginner's Chase. I remember doing a class 1 under Keith Donoghue once. All their horses are always there to win. But for the issue at hand, Stephen Cass said this the last day. 2 years ago, I would have been completely anti this. Completely anti. I would have been beating my chest saying that, you know, this is a slap in the face to Ireland. And the BHA are trying to do that. You know, they've restricted Irish runners at a certain level as well. They are trying to keep the Irish away because the Irish are just beating them. But something like this does have to happen, but it needs to be thought out better. It needs to be a case where, you know, capital owners, capital trainers also might need to be that a horse needs to be registered for a yard for 6 months, or, you know what, there kind of needs to be a lot more thought out than kind of just the way that they've done it. I do think, though, overall that horse racing needs more of this. I think the HRI and BHA need to work together. I don't think it's good that we have 2 yards dominating and you've got other very good trainers who can't get a look and can't get a decent horse. They just can't get one because everyone's going to the 2 main yards. And why wouldn't you? If I had 400 grand for a horse, Darren, who am I sending the horse to? You know, like, it's very obvious. Even Nicky Henderson and Paul Nichols aren't getting horses that the 2 lads are. For the future of horse racing, it is not good, the domination that these 2 trainers have. We're going to be whittled down very soon to having boutique yards like Henry de Bromhead, who target the big festivals, who live off that. You'll have other yards that live off gambles, and everyone in between is going to be completely forced out. So horse racing does need to do something desperately, but it needs to be more thought out than this. And this also smacked of releasing news to distract from the fact that they're after hiring Dido Harding as their new head, the woman who's completely involved with, just Google her, the amount of shenanigans that has gone on between her and the Tory party. And they've now elected her to the top of the BHA, and then conveniently, when people start looking at that, this gets leaked. It's no coincidence at all. But overall, this is something that I think does need to happen. The more this happens, the more that it means that, okay, my horse can't run because of Rick Gordon Elliott. You know what? I might actually move him down to another yard and try and get thing that could boost the likes of a Paul Nolan, etc. But the BHA just haven't done it right again. I don't know why they keep leaking. Remember, we found out about the Bryony Frost case before anything had been released at all. Again, another leak from there. The BHA, I think the thought process is right, but as always in horse racing generally, Darren, the way that they've done it is just shite.
Yeah, good intentions with shit execution, I think, is the general modus operandi of the BHA, as Dermo has said. It might be a little bit harsh, but yeah, it seems to be clangor after clangor after clangor from that particular governing body. And my sympathy is kind of limited because they're often the first to throw their own slap when they think an injustice has been done elsewhere. So seeing them embarrassed on a public stage it might be no harm. In any case, we'll move on from that rather unsavory topic and get back to the actual horse racing. So we'll move quickly into this weekend's racing. And Dermot, I'm going to stick with you. This podcast is obviously recorded on Thursday afternoon. It will be released this evening, so we can have a quick spin through Cheltenham tomorrow. Anything catch your eye? Diarmuid runs in the first. Trelawn, Stephen Cass's horse, runs in the beginner's chase. A couple of other interesting runners on the card. Was there anything that jumped out at you from tomorrow?
Not a card that I've got massively involved in at all, really at all. But the race that really interested me was the cross country, just from a watching point of view. You got Fury Road in there, Galvin in there. It's a serious race. Manila Indo's in there. It's got a serious race of. Gordon Elliott has turned that race into the afterlife for kind of previous Gold Cup contenders now. So they all make their way in there. Friday's card is deadly. Diarmuid will be one who I'll be watching. But as far as the bet goes on that card, Darren, there wasn't one really that kind of grabbed me.
Yeah, no stress. There are a couple of relative shorties on that card, so not surprising that it might be a watch and brief for yourself. Gary, I'll ask you the same question. Tomorrow's racing at Cheltenham. Was there anything that appealed enough to get you to wind up the old wallet or not?
Yeah, so fourth race, Diarmuid just wins. That's a point and shoot job. So I'll be loading up to get the turkey and ham money in on her. And other one is, Demo touched on the cross country. High profile names, but it is a handicap, this one, different come March. So Giselle, I think, is going to put up to the Irish horses. Went close in the Grand Sefton Beecher last season, went one better in the former last time out. He's spun around the tie a couple of times, winning form around there. That type of test will be similar enough to a cross country, whereas they crawl and sprint, and he showed a good level of form across there. He's getting a lot of weight off the Irish runners, and I think that could be telling at the end. Like, he won't beat them come March time, but tomorrow I think he does.
Very interesting from Gary Connolly. Always a good man for one coming from the French Riviera and elsewhere. So that's interesting. We move on to Saturday, lads. Gary, I'll stick with you for now. We've got a full milieu of racing from Cheltenham tomorrow and a couple of races from Doncaster. So I'll spin through Cheltenham first of all. The 1:15 will kick off as a 2-mile handicap chase. The likes of Calico, Fanambul, Savola are in here. Gary, was there anything that jumped out at you as a potential winner?
Yeah, one I really like in this is in Alexios Dio, big eye catcher for me last time at Cheltenham.
In Excelsis Deo, you heat.
That's a man who never sang a hymn at school.
You never
that's all that's wrong with
mass, did you? Country lads clearly being forced along to church that has given us that in Excelsis Deo. I think it means glory to God in the highest or something. Yeah, no, sorry.
I think
a word for that. No, I had no idea what it meant. To just names, but yeah, really like him now. Yeah, last one behind Dancing Around, absolutely flew up the hill. I think he was 10 off them coming down to the last beat, about 2.5, and that form is working out exceptionally well. Like Triple Trade, won on his next starts, not long till May, run up in that Paddy Power, which I think is a real deep race this year. I'd be following any form coming out of that Paddy Power chase, and even had out the Obo who came down. He chased home Jonbon and Edward Stone there the weekend. Only up a pound for that run. I think he'll prove extremely hard to beat here.
In Excelsis Deo, ignoring Gary Connolly's horrendous Latin and general lack of religious authority. Dermot, I'll move on to you. Are you feeling this is a godly sort of a tip, or are you looking elsewhere for the race winner?
It is, yeah. I didn't have Gary penciled down for a career in the priesthood, but that's definitely gone now. Anyway, I agree completely. Yeah, no, he he stayed on very, very well. He stayed on as if he was late for mass. The last year he just kept going. So he's definitely one that just looks very well handicapped. That run it was quite enough run. He kind of flew through late. This should be a target, you'd think. And if he can get his act together earlier on the race, he should take a bit of whack in here, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'm sure Harry Fry will have his rosary beads out this evening. He could probably do it with a big winner. Dermot, I'm going to stick with you for the Virgin Bet December Gold Cup handicap. A very competitive affair, which would be a shock to nobody. Thunder Rock heads the market at 7-2. Got the likes of Monmoral, So Scottish, Il Ridoto, Fugitive. Fakir Dudairis is making the trip across the Irish Sea. Was the one that you thought was a little bit of the wrong price, or one that you thought might be the winner of this race from a while out?
So I the front of the market are two horses that I'm kind of keen to take on. Monmoral is quite small, very good horse. He could be the class act in here, but he's very small and he's doing all his winning in small fields. This isn't the biggest field in the world, but I'd still be worried about him in a hustle and bustle like this. Thunder Rock, a lot of the excitement about Thunder Rock is that he beat Malheur Mission last time. I don't think Malheur Mission was there to win that race that day. Malheur Mission was coming back off a fall. They were delighted with the kind of run round. It wasn't that they weren't trying. I'm not accusing anybody of that, but it was very much, let's get his confidence back, preserve his mark going into the Hennessy, and go from there. Thunder Rock beat him, but I think if had Thunder Rock ran in the Hennessy, he was finishing third. Monmoral also holds him on previous form as well. So if it was between the top two, I'd be going for Monmoral. This time last year, he was second behind the Whacker. What's that horse's name? Big Whacker. Yeah, that's it. So he was second behind him with Thunder Rock back in third. I like Fugitive here. I thought that run last time was a big run. Those two horses in front of him, not long till May and Stage Star. They're, in my opinion, depending on Allaho, they could be first and second in a Ryanair. They were first and second in the JLT last year as well, or sorry, the Alterners. So Fugitive ran an absolute screamer. I don't think he's bumping into two horses like that. I also would have question marks over Thunder Rock and Monmoral, who are doing most of their winning in small fields. I'm not sure a race like this will suit them. Fugitive is more than proven at the course. The horses have won races like this before, just like him, the likes of John Spirit, etc. I'm thinking of. Horses that kind of keep coming back to this course and distance, they eventually will kind of get their race. He more than deserves one. He keeps bumping into one. He's a very good horse, and I think this is his day there.
Yeah, listen, you wouldn't begrudge him. Went up the guts of £20 in the handicap last year and only has a 20 grand racing episode to show for it. Carl Hinchy's son of Ballingarry. So as Dermot says, very progressive last season, and fingers crossed you might be able to get the job done for Connections tomorrow. Gary Connolly, I'll come to you. The December Gold Cup at Cheltenham, a race won by many superstar down through the years. Do you think you found one for tomorrow?
I'm rowing in behind Diarmuid with Fugitive. I think he's going to be tough to beat here. It's hard to believe he hasn't won a race around Cheltenham. He never runs a bad race. Like, I thought he made a mistake probably putting the cheap pieces on him, and the Paddy Power just lit him up a bit too much, and he was a bit fresh early on. Absolutely tanked through the race and just got tired late on. Really like the form. He should love the ground as well, and just 8-1 looks too big. So again, I'll follow Dermot winning that one. Fugitive for me.
The most homogenous Racehour episode I've ever seen. 2 for 2. The lads are a 2-1 fab and a 7-1 poke in the December Gold Cup. Read into that what you will. We move on then quickly to a handicap chase run over the Gold Cup distance at Cheltenham. It's a premier handicap. The guts of 55 grand to the winner. The likes of Protectorate rock up here. 300 through 5, who let me down the last day in Wincanton. A couple of other interesting runners, Broadway Boy, who obviously is course form here from November, as recently as that. Gary, I'll stick with you. Did you find the winner of this race?
Done a half-hour study of this race last night and thought I found the winner, and he's not declared. So typical. It's great seeing Protectorate run here. Always love to see a real classy horse take on a handicap. He's given away a lot of weight. I'd love to see him win, but I don't know. There's a few down below him. I just think he's giving him too much weight. I'm probably going to have a few bob on Easy As That. I just thought it was interesting to going here rather than the December Gold Cup. Just very interesting stepping up and trip. But it's more so an afterthought. Original selection's not running, so we'll go for Easy As That, just as a token bet.
Easy As That for Gary Connolly after his initial selection, I should say, wasn't declared. Hopefully it is as easy as that for him. Dermot, I'm going to come to you. If you pick the same one as Gary again, I'm going to accuse you lads of sharing notes beforehand, so let me know what you reckon.
Yeah, we are.
Jeez.
In agreement. Gary's in the office next door to me now. I had to put these blinds down further. I think I don't know if he's sneaking in to look at my notes, but easy as that ran a screamer last time. Got outpaced early and stayed on 60. If you watch the replay, late on you can't even see him. He's not in the camera at all until the very end when he flies through. Very clearly just got taken off his feet, stage start steps, some fractions that day. And he just couldn't go with them. Stepping up and trip makes so much sense, and he just screams to me as being a Venetia typical handicapper who just keep improving. And afterthought for Gary, I saw him entered. I was praying that he go here. I'm very confident that he'll go very, very well here.
Wow, 3 for 3 with the lads. Venetia Williams charge. Obviously picked up an enormous pot last week in entry. Funnily enough, over the same distance, obviously different race course. There's no doubt in my mind her horses are flying, and when the mud starts flying, Venetia's tend to do the same thing. So fingers crossed, the lads can go 3 for 3 at Cheltenham tomorrow. Moving on then to 3 o'clock, it's the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. It's basically a trial race with the equivalent name at the Cheltenham Festival. Most of these are fairly lightly raced. You've got the likes of Cadell in here. I'm going to go with Carrickmore and Rowan, Destroyed the Evidence. Dermot, was there one that jumped out at you as maybe being a little bit unexposed? It's a fairly punishing test, this race.
Yeah, Cadell for me, I think that was a very decent race at Kelso last time. He was beaten by a Ruth Jefferson horse called Kerry Hill. And that horse, a very decent horse, I thought won a point to point quite well. And did that well, but Cadell was staying on over the 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs. So this going up a triple definitely suit him. This lad looked like a big dope that day, but really got himself together and stayed on and stayed on and stayed on. Lucinda Russell brings these horses through slowly but surely. And the front of the market for me, I don't really rate any of them all that highly. So Cadell showed an awful lot of promise that day. I think that's going to prove to be an above average race. And for me, at 8 to 1 or so, Cadell looks a very decent bet.
Cadell for Diarmuid Nolan. There's nothing strange about a staying hurdler in Ronnie Bartlett's colours. Obviously the race sponsor as well through Albert Bartlett, his spud company. Gary, I'm going to come to you and ask you the same question. The Albert Bartlett trial, what did you make of it, and did you come down on the winner?
I think the love-in for me and Dermo finishes at a treble, so we're going against them here. I really like Shanna Bob. It's probably the cliche now, big chaser in the making, but huge horse. So Henderson running around Plumpton on his debut was a strange choice. Like a speedy track like that wouldn't suit him at all. Now we were using 2 to 9 shot or whatever. I like that he showed enough there to me, like on a track that didn't suit. The further he went, the further he went clear. Should relish this, stepping up and trip around this a more galloping track. He came with a decent reputation from the pointing fields, and I think, like, I don't think this is a great race. These are all handicappers. This one could be a graded horse, like, so I'd be disappointed that we can't destroy these, like.
Shanna Bob for Gary Connolly in the Joe Donnelly colours. Manny's the winner. The pair of them lads have had down through the years. Obviously, Shishkin's owner as well. So they'll be hoping for another superstar, albeit maybe one more in the staying profile than Shishkin was initially hoped to be. We'll move on then quickly. There's a mare's handicap hurdle to round out the day at Cheltenham on Saturday. Theatre Glories, another Nicky Henderson horse, heads the weights here, looking to go one better from her third in a grade 2 at Ascot last month when heavily fancied. Plenty of them in here, Gary, a mixture of exposed and obviously improving. What did you make of the race when you had a look at it?
I like North Susan here for the Skeltons. I was a bit surprised at the start of the year that they decided to go novice chasing with her. I think she has a really, really attractive handicap mark. So going chasing, I don't know, a strange move for them. So she was disappointing all right on the first run. Sort of switching back to the smaller obstacles here. She was a really good novice hurdler. She ran into Love Envoy a couple of times when she came fourth in the mare's novice. So I think she's extremely well handicapped over hurdles and looks a nice opportunity for her here. So she missed last season through injury, so she could start to make it for last time here, I think.
No, Susan, yeah, these connections are they're no stranger to a handicap plot, or a plot, or plot, you could say. Dermot, I'm going to come to you on this 2.5 mile mares handicap currently sponsored by Virgin Bet. Did you come down in the same selection as Gary, or are you looking elsewhere?
No, terrible race, really, really bad race. They're all only okay. But Zestful at 14-1. Martin Keeley tends to get his kind of Cheltenham winners away from the festival at these meetings. He's kind of, he tends to leave with one. And Zestful has to be forgiven for a bad run last time, but last season was second behind a horse with no name who went on to obviously win it. Royal Ascot, I think it was actually, and was a good second there. And this race isn't that great. Gets in off a nice weight here with Jonbon booked. Zestful at 14 or 16-1 or so is for me far too big a price in what is a very, very winnable race.
Excellent stuff. The lads continue to diverge. Zestful for Diarmuid Nolan. Okay, so that's Cheltenham wrapped up for Saturday. I'm going to move north, I think, Doncaster. My geography of the UK is only very limited, but
up in Yorkshire,
up in Yorkshire, yeah. So we're heading to the 240 in Doncaster on Saturday. It's a handicap hurdle over the minimum distance of 2 miles. Gin Coco, one of Harry Fry's, I think, heads the market here at 4-172. Once again, you've got the likes of Tommy's Oscar in here, Soaring Glory, who at one point I think was expected to go on to huge things. Number of very interesting runners here. Dermot, I'm sticking with you for this. Where did you fall on? Or who did you fall on?
I like Rare Edition here. This horse was a bit of a hipster pick for that Supreme last year. Obviously wasn't up to that standard whatsoever. Obviously Marine Nationale and is a very decent horse, and then went on to fall then in a Grade 1 at Aintree. You can forgive those two, but before that, this horse was knocking up some very decent wins. The fact that they went for the Supreme shows you kind of what they thought of him. Gets in here off a mark 136, has won fresh before, and that young jockey Roberts, he's a 20% strike rate over hurdles. He's a very decent
He's brilliant.
Yeah,
he is brilliant. Sorry to cut across you. He is, as someone who watches racing every day of the week in the UK, this lad is brilliant. Yeah. He's really, really good.
Particularly over hurdles, as they always start off. Most young jockeys are brilliant. Bar Cornerstone Walsh, who's just winning on any horse he gets on, like his first ride over fences and everything. But this young lad is, he's fantastic. Great booking. He came under a 5 off, so this horse is effectively running off 131. He could be the class act here as well. So I think Charlie Longsdon could well have one really well lined up here for what is a decent pot. Yeah,
absolutely. Second season hurdler, tend to go well in races like this, and as you say, he could be the potential class act with improvement likely. Gary, I'll come back to you then. 240 in Doncaster. Where did your pen fall?
I'm going to take a chance on Rare Edition in this one. He won his first 4 on the bounce, and then the wheels came off big time in the spring from him, but really solid form, particularly Boxing Day when he beat that Rhubarb of Paul Nicholls, who's been winning everything since. Like, that piece of form, he's very well handicapped on that piece of form. You're just taking a chance. He's fit enough to do himself justice, so I'll take a chance on him at the price.
Rare edition, the lads teaming up once again in what is turning out to be a rare edition of the Racehour podcast. So the last race I have in my running order for this week before we go into everything else and naps for the lads is 3:15 at Doncaster. It's a handicap chase over the 3 mile distance. We've got the likes of Manila Trump in here. Market is headed by Mr. Coffee, Forward Plan, Sail Away, etc., etc. Gary, I'm going to stick with you. If you tell me you're picking Mr. Coffee, I'm going to turn your camera and your microphone off, and I'm moving on to Diarmuid Nolan. Where did you fall down on?
Mr. Coffee, absolutely no chance. He'll never win a race. I don't think he'll never win a race. I like Whistling in the Dark here. Again, this Paddy Power form that I really like. He's still
very like Whistling in the Dark too, don't you? You like that as
Jesus.
That Paddy Power form, I really like it. He just made a bad mistake in a vital period, and he was just let come home in his own time. Still unexposed of offences. Step up and trip should sue. And he'll do it for me.
Whistling in the Dark for Gary Connolly. I'm going to leave that as it is. Dermot, I'm going to move on to you. Will you be whistling in the dark tomorrow afternoon, or or later tonight? Even I should ask, are you going to be whistling in the dark, or what's your plan?
We have a start party tonight now, myself and Gary. So yeah, we could be whistling in the start later on.
Whistling at each other now, I'd say it's about the height of it if I had to guess. But
yeah, we could be, or it could be just singing it in Excelsis Deo all night. But I am taking a chance on. I'm weirdly, myself and Gary rarely agree, and we're agreeing left, right, and centre. And I rarely put up with Charlie Long's and horse, let alone two of them. So Castle Robin here is just too big a price, 16-1. This is an awful race. It's an absolutely, for the pot that it is, all you hear is UK trainers moaning. There's no eight Gordon Elliott runners in here, and it's a terrible field. If the Henderson horse is ever going to win one, this is probably the day. But I don't think he will. He can't back him. But Castle Robin last time, he's coming here off a break, but last season he beat Lord Accord. He has very decent form as well away from that. He's running here off a mark of 136. He's won well fresh. He's still well handicapped in my opinion. And the more that you kind of look at everything here in this race, it's just terrible. And off £2 higher last season, he won a very decent handicap at Sandown on similar ground over the similar trip. In a race full of horses who aren't in good form, he's coming here fresh. This might have been a target of his. He's more than good enough to win this, and he's waited to do so. I do think that the market has overlooked him, and at 16-1 or so, Castle Robin for me in what is a very winnable race is far, far too big a price.
an interesting case made there for Castle Robin by Diarmuid Nolan and the putters of Fitchery Hay, who I think it'd be fair to say more associated with the flat. Has obviously had her fair share of jumpers as well. A lot of them trained by Charlie Longston and by John Joe O'Neill, if I remember correctly. Dermot, I'm going to stick with you before I ask this week's naps, I should say. Have you got anything else for the weekend? You're usually good for at least one or two.
Yeah, so the kind of sticking with kind of our party later on. When I ask Gary now about 2 a.m. now if he wants another point, he'll say to me, "Sure, why not?" And that horse is running on Saturday, and that horse is typical handicap in Ireland. This is low level stuff. 250 at Fairyhouse on Saturday, but sure, why not? Was a very good third last time. Bumped into a Gordon Elliott horse who's those horses just aren't stopping at the moment. End up finishing third. This young claimer on board. I imagine he's the son of the trainer. I don't know, but he's a good horse. He's weighted to win again. This young lad's claim of £7 is very useful, and sure, why not? In what is a desperate handicap, he's more than good enough to win this, and he's just running himself into form. I do think that this can be his day, and in the 250 Fairies Saturday, I would be shell shocked if he's not involved at the very least.
It's a good selection there from Diarmuid Nolan. Sure, why not? Gary, I'm going to come to you. Anything else for the weekend's racing aside from your naps, please?
I'll embarrass myself with some poor pronunciation again. Just one at Navan that I liked. Carfanok, we'll say.
Carfanok, yeah.
Any enlightenment what that means, or is it just
it's a place in Scotland, I'm fairly sure.
Okay. So Scotland and religion.
No, it's Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland. I beg your pardon.
Northern Ireland. I beg your pardon. Religion lesson for me today. So deadly stuff. Yeah, I like her. She ran a nice race at Doncaster last time out. It looks a winnable race here. So I'm gonna side with her. Another way of thinking goes in a novice chase. Looks weak enough. That they're fiddling with this horse, but I think winning this won't go up too much in the weight. So I like him as well, and it'd be good to see Redemption Day in the bumper at the same meeting. Bit of a layoff, so it'll be interesting to see as he come back anywhere near as good as he showed in his earlier days.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard for them oftentimes to come back just as good as they once looked, but fingers crossed the time off has done them good, as well as Carfanok. Okay, so that is the end of this week's show. I'm just going to get the naps from the lads before we wrap up. And Gary, seeing as you're on my screen, you're up first. Your nap for the weekend, please and thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go in Alexius Deo. Did I get that right?
In Excelsis Deo.
In Excelsis Deo. We're close. So in Excelsis Deo, and I'll go to Mass and say a couple of Hail Marys for
You'd burn alive the second you cross the threshold of the church.
You'll need full-on confession there, guy. But
Yeah, they can flick the holy water at you from there.
In the charity box then once this wins.
Right, I'll take your word for it. In Excelsis Deo 2-1 in the 1:15 at Cheltenham, if my memory serves me right. Diarmuid Nolan, I'm going to come to you for your nap, please, for this weekend.
The 2:40 at Doncaster on Saturday. Darren, rare edition.
Rare edition for Charlie Langston. Okie dokie. That brings us to the actual end of this.
I'm
going to roll in behind you lads in Excelsis Deo. I thought he was exceptionally well handicapped. And he's one of those JP horses for Harry Fry, where you could see him going on a bit of a roll. I think 2-1 is skinny, and I'd usually prefer to put up bigger price than that. But I think he's got an absolutely a whale of a chance. It wouldn't shock me to see him going off like 11-8, 5-4 tomorrow, if they decided to row in behind him. So that's in Excelsis Deo. We'll all be choir boys come the end of that race, please God. That is a wrap for this week's Race Hour. Thanks as always for listening in. We'll be back next week to review all this weekend's action, as well as to take a look at next weekend and also the Christmas racing. So until then, gamble responsibly and be lucky.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounded Cheltenham Star into submission.